guys, it's Dawn, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing how to make these two cards using, it's not a groundbreaking technique, but we're going to be creating our own stencils using our dies and acetate, two things that we already have on hand. And I know this won't be new to a lot of you, but you may be able to pick up some tips along the way. So let's start by taking a look at the materials we'll need. You'll need the die of your choice. Here I've chosen this clear cut stackers, and I'll show you why in a sec. And then you'll need some acetate. I really like this Duralar acetate. You get 25 9x12 sheets in the pack, and you can pick this up at Michael's or Dick Blick. I think it's $6.66 at Dick Blick. So once you cut this down into like 6x6 squares, I mean, you do the math, that's super cheap. Plus you can use it for your shaker cards, which I know are really popular right now. Now this is pretty straightforward. If you know how to use your die cutting machine, then you can do this. I want to store my completed stencils with my die, so I've cut my sheets down to 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. I've laid down a white piece of cardstock so that I can see the edges of my acetate. Being that it's, completely crystal clear, it's hard to see where the edges are. This will ensure that I get proper placement of my dies on the acetate itself. For the smaller stars, I'm just going to arrange them all on the same sheet, and I'm going to leave 1/2 inch to 1 inch around the edges for stability. I'm just going to run this through the die cutting machine as usual, and when I get to the large one, I will just run it through on a sheet all on its own. So you end up with this stencil with all three sizes of these stars on the same thing. And the nice thing is that it also cut me the negatives of those stars, so I can store those as well inside of my storage sleeve here with my die, and I can use those as masks if I want at some point. So now I have the dies, the matching stencils, the matching masks, and I can even create my own custom designs if I want. Like here, I just took the smallest star and die cut it over and over again. And it was really easy. I just used a piece of washi tape to hold it in place each time. And look at me getting all organized. They can all even be stored together inside the storage sleeve here with your dies. And here's a look at the first card that we'll be creating using the stencils. This is just a fun shooting star birthday card that I think would be great for girls of all ages. So now let's make something with these stencils. I'm going to be using our Pure Color dye inks in Ocean Drive, Sweet Gelato, and Wild Mango. We're going to be sponging our ink through the stencil using these little ink daubers, and I picked these up at Simon Says Stamp. I think they were like $10 for 10 of them, and I really like these. I like the small tip. I've dedicated each one to a color and then labeled it using my my label maker thingy. And I just really like the smaller surface area on these. It allows me to get into the smaller areas of my stencil without having to do any masking of the other areas. We're going to be creating some shooting stars. So I'm starting with Ocean Drive, and I just am picking up color on the sponge dauber, and then I'm just applying it through the open area of the stencil. Now you could definitely load up this dauber and load the color in there. However, one of the things that I really like about using the stencil is that I can create this 3D effect. I can start from the outside, the solid part of the stencil, and then move inward. And it's going to transfer more ink around the edges and then just kind of lift up as I get to the middle. And that's going to leave that middle area really light, and it's instantly going to make this look three-dimensional. Now, like I said, I'm going light and I'm taking my time and I'm building my color. But trust me, I'll show you in a second card here in a minute that this transfers ink really fast. All you have to do is put more ink on that dauber. Now, when I lift this stencil, I have the perfect little three-dimensional looking star. If you want to maintain true color, make sure you wipe off your stencil between colors. Otherwise, if it doesn't really matter, you're looking for a blend, then don't worry about it. And as you add your new color, it'll pick up that residual ink that's left on top of the stencil and mix it with your new color. The thickness of this material is great as well. It's a lot thinner than your traditional stencil material, so I think that it seems to be a lot more gentle on the tip of this applicator. I've done this quite a few times now, and I'm not noticing any breakdown of the sponge. Now I'm sure over time it will probably break down the sponge, but it seems to be holding up really well, and I think that's because this is a little bit thinner material. We're going to be adding this die cut happy to the card, so I'm laying it down so I can get good placement for that last star. And then I'll just move it out of the way when I'm ready to start sponging. Once I've got all my stars sponged in, I can add the little stardust trail. And for that, I'm going to be using this, it's kind of like a paintbrush stroke, and it's from our Ink Splats stamp set. And I don't know, I think it just works perfectly for creating this little trail to make these stars look like the shooting stars. I'll stamp each one in its respective color, so I use Ocean Drive and Sweet Gelato. And now I'm going to add some little sprinkling of stars using our Borders and Backgrounds 3 stamp set. I'll be using this little cluster stars here, and I'll be stamping that in our Wild Mango ink. I'm not going to go crazy here. I could have stamped an all over background using that long background strip, but I'm a less is more kind of person, so I just wanted to add a little sprinkling here and there. I've temporarily put down my die cut just to give me a better idea of where I might need a few more stars. And now I can pretty much put this card together. I've already gone ahead and cut down my card base. This is our Dove Gray cardstock, and it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches tall. I've die cut Happy using the Happy Trio die and stamped Birthday Wishes already using Memories die ink in black. And this is from our Whole Lotta Happy stamp set, which coordinates with the Happy Trio die. So now I'm fiddling around with how I want it to be, and I know I want it to be this kind of offset angle. And they have dies that will cut these for you, but it's easy enough to do even if you don't have a die. I've just taken some removable adhesive and put it on the back of this panel, and then I've positioned it how I want it. And then I'm just going to flip it over, take it over to my paper trimmer, and cut off those edges that are hanging off. So I actually changed my mind on the sentiment, and I decided that I wanted it stamped in the Sweet Gelato as well. So I've adhered that panel using some foam tape to my card base, and now I've stamped out a new sentiment, and I'm going to adhere that with foam tape. Now when I'm working at angles like this and I want to make sure it's straight, I use my T-square ruler just to make sure that my sentiment is straight, because that angle at the bottom of your card can kind of mess with you sometimes. So using a ruler always helps to make sure you have it straight. And I thought it needed just a little something more, and if you follow me on Instagram, then you know that I just recently finally broke down and bought these Stella pens, and I'm trying really hard not to use them on everything, but hey, these are shooting stars, and I think they call for some glitter. So I'm adding a little bit to the little stars, and then to the centers of those big stars where they're lightest, and then just a little bit on the trails that they're leaving. And I think that that adds just the right amount of glitteriness. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyways, I think it adds just the right amount to this otherwise clean and simple card. And to finish it off, I just added some sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. I really love the clear ones. They're definitely my favorite. Next up, I want to show you something that's harder to achieve with a stamp, but with a stencil, it's super easy. So I'm starting with a standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, and I'm going to create these trailing stars. I'm going to start with Sweet Gelato, and this time I'm going to be inking it up much more heavily than we did in the last one. And you'll see how nice and deep this color actually goes on. I'm just going to load up my dauber, and I'm not going to reload, so this time I'm going to load it up good, and I'm going to lay down the color for my first star. And you can see how nice and rich and even that color goes on. Then I'm just going to shift the stencil ever so slightly, and I'm going to ink again. And I'm going to keep doing this, and each time I'm going to apply a little less pressure, or some colors will run out or fade out faster. But I noticed this Sweet Gelato is super pigmented, so I just lightened my pressure a little bit as I went. And this helped me to get this almost like trailing effect, and it's really cool. So I've cleaned my stencil and I've switched to Ocean Drive. I've loaded up my ink dauber, and now I'm just starting to transfer my color. Each time I'm shifting my stencil just a little bit. And this is something that I really like this technique. You couldn't achieve this with stamps. Maybe you could, but it would take a lot of work because you would have to re-ink all of the time, and you just wouldn't achieve this same gradual color fade that you can with this method. I really think it looks awesome with these stars. I know it would look really cool with some different shapes as well. I don't know, I just went to see The Fault in Our Stars recently, and I've been on a star kick. I don't know why. Anyways, by the way, PSA, if you are a crier, you will want to wait to watch this movie at home, especially if you are an ugly crier like me. Fortunately, we were sitting next to these teenage girls, and they were definitely ugly crying. I was so distracted by their crying. I mean, I'm talking the hyperventilating cry, and it kept me from paying too much attention to what was going on screen. So though I did cry a little bit, I didn't get to that full-fledged, bawling. So definitely, if you are prone to cry during sappy movies, definitely one to wait to see at home. We're going to be using that same Happy Trio die, and I already have one cut from Sweet Gelato cardstock, but we don't have an Ocean Drive color, so I just used our ink to color a white die cut. Now I wanted to show you really quickly how easy this is, so we're going to do another one, and this time we're going to be using Wild Mango, and I cannot express how evenly these inks dry. They're just wonderful. They are definitely my favorite inks. I can just take that sponge dauber, go over this die cut. You can either press the color onto the die cut, or if it's a more sturdy die, you can just kind of rub it on. But this ink, may look a little uneven at first, but as it dries, it just kind of completely absorbs into that paper and spreads itself out, and it just dries so evenly. So this is perfect for creating the custom color die cuts that you need. I don't use a lot of colored cardstock. I use a lot of neutral cardstock. So for me, this is a perfect technique because I just want sometimes little accent pieces and certain colors. So this works great for me, especially when I want colored die cuts. Since we have colored die cuts going onto that colored background, I needed a little something to serve as some separation. So I've die cut 3 more of those Happy using the Happy Trio die, and I'm just going to glue those to the back of each of our die cuts. Now I'm going to offset it just a little bit when I adhere it, and that's going to provide a great little, almost like a drop shadow for each of these words. I'm using Tombow Mono Multi Glue to adhere these, and there's several different mediums that you could use. There's several different ways that you could do this. I'm going to be honest, this is not my favorite glue for this particular technique because the Tombow Mono Multi Glue never fully dries. I mean, even after it dries, it stays kind of tacky. So if you get it on top of your die cut, it's going to stay sticky. So yeah, there's definitely better products on the market for this particular technique. See there, you can see it sticking to my fingers. But I didn't have any on hand when I was filming this, and I was just looking for something quick. So Tombow Mono Multi Glue it is. And once those are all done, I can just adhere them to the card base. Again, I'm using that same Tombow Mono Multi Glue, and I'm being very careful not to over apply it. If I get too much, it'll kind of ooze out, and I don't want that. So I'm just adding little dots here and there. To help getting my centering and my spacing correct, I applied the top one first, the bottom one second, and then I knew to fit the third one right in between those. So that helped me to evenly space them. I've stamped the rest of the sentiment using the Whole Lotta Happy stamp set, and I'm just adhering that to the front using some foam tape. And that will pretty much finish off this card. I just trimmed that panel down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches and adhered it to a standard card base. So there you have some DIY stencils. Stencils are really popular right now, and this is a great way to try them out, especially since you probably already have those dies in your stash. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget you can find the W+9 supplies at W+9.com. You can also connect with us on our blog at stampawaywithme.blogspot.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, everywhere and anywhere. I do want to give a quick shout out to all of my new subscribers. I am so overwhelmed by how many people are subscribing, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe. And don't forget to like the videos that you really like so I know which ones you want to see more of. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time. Bye!